Thanks for joining us. I'm Handan Seoul. U.S. Vice President Kamala Harris and former President Donald Trump faced off in a highly anticipated presidential debate in Philadelphia. A pivotal battleground stayed in the race for the White House. The two locked horns over a wide range of key issues, from the economy and foreign policy to immigration and abortion. Did the two present substantive policy discussions and less drama as voters wanted? Who's considered the likely winner of the crucial showdown? And how would Harris and Trump's respective policies impact South Korea? In today's Within the Frame, we break down the high-stakes Harris-Trump TV debate with Min Jung-hoon, professor at the Korea National Diplomatic Academy, who joins me in the studio. Thank you, as always, for coming in today.
My pleasure, always.
And with us from New York is John ZOGBY, founder and senior partner at John ZOGBY Strategies. Welcome to the program.
Thank you. Good to be here again.
All right, Professor Min, let's first talk a bit about the significance of today's debate. Clearly, it was a high-stakes event, but could you provide more details on its importance?
Yes, first of all, it was a very important campaign event because it was the first debate between Harris and Trump. And our studies have shown that about 70% of voters decided their mind right after the conventions of the two political parties. And the remaining, about 30% of the voters make their minds toward the election day. And these swing voters or the undecided voters, they needed to respond to the campaign events more sensitively than the early voters, and they needed to have more information about the candidates and the issues of the election to make up their minds. And in this presidential election, 2024, they want to have more information about the candidate Harris. They know that Harris is the vice president of the Biden government, but they are not sure if she has got enough political capabilities to run the country as a president. So this presidential debate was considered as the opportunity that these voters could gather information about candidate Harris. And it is likely that they would use the information when they make up their minds. So it was important whether Harris would meet or exceed the expectations about the debate performance. And personally, I think Harris met the expectation in the debate. I think she did a good job.
It was all the more significant because it's such a tight race, isn't it, between Harris and Trump, and also because we all saw what happened to President Biden after his presidential debate with Trump. Now, Dr. ZOGBY, what's your overall assessment of the debate? Who's the winner? What was each candidate's strategy? And as Professor Min alluded to, do you think Harris seized the chance to reveal more about her policies?
Yes, yes, and yes. I think that Harris came in needing to prove that she was presidential, that she was tough, that she was prepared to be president of the United States on the first day. She looked confident, and she maintained her cool throughout. Those are all very important factors. And so for the 31% of the voters before the debate who said that they really needed to know more about Kamala Harris, she gave them, I think, what they needed and what they were looking for. Overall, her performance was quite strong, but there were no knockout blows. She did go after Donald Trump on a number of issues as a prosecutor, and he as a convicted criminal, but she didn't bully him, and I thought she showed some wise restraint there. And then on the other side with Donald Trump, more Americans knew a lot about Donald Trump than knew about Kamala Harris. But there were moments where he moved from his studied approach of looking serious, so serious that he really was scowling throughout much of the debate. But then he got bizarre a few times. A debunked story about a town in Ohio where Haitian immigrants are eating local pets. That had been debunked, and yet he, a candidate for the presidency of the United States, chose to use that story, still falling back on his tendency to exaggerate crowd sizes by calling them the great most attended rallies in American political history. That got downright weird. I will close by saying that Trump had a good line. I think possibly the best line of the evening. In effect, saying to Ms. Harris, if you are promising so many things, you've been there for 3.5 years, why didn't you get it done? I thought that was a very powerful line. By the same token, though, I think by a wide margin, Harris actually won the debate, but I don't believe it's going to move voters significantly.
The Harris campaign remained ambiguous about holding another debate up until now, but almost immediately after the debate ended, they called for a second presidential debate before November. So this shows that Democrats were quite pleased with Harris's performance. But as you mentioned, Trump did have his awkward moments, but he also had some of his strong punchlines. Now, Professor Min, economy is undoubtedly a top priority for American voters, which is perhaps why the debate kicked off with a question about the current state of the U.S. economy. What were some of Trump and Harris's key economic policies and pledges?
Yes, both candidates have a very different policy orientations about the U.S. economy. On the one hand, Harris has got bottom of approach and stresses the middle class. And she argues that U.S. people would be better off when the middle class of the country would be strengthened. So it is like the Harris version of Bidenomics, just a bottom-up approach. So if elected, she will pursue opportunity economy, and her government would play an active role to support the middle class. And her government will force super wealthy people to pay their fair share, and the revenue will be used to support the middle class. On the other hand, as a conservative candidate, President Trump has got top-down approach and stresses the trickle-down effect. It's the traditional, the conservative model of economy. So he pledges that he will reduce the regulations and cut taxes for businesses. So we will see at the end of the campaign which policy would be the preferred by more voters this November. So we will see. And more importantly, regarding the U.S. economy, cost of living is a very important factor for this November election. So that's why the VP Harris would propose several tax cuts and the tax intensive for the middle class and the low-income people.
And how would Trump and Harris's economic policies impact South Korea, whose presidency would be more beneficial for the South Korean economy and Korean companies?
Well, more accurately, which candidate trade policy could be more beneficial for the South Korean economy? I think that the two candidates are likely to use the both weapons of the means, like the tariffs, to reduce the trade deficits, and they will reshore the manufacturing facilities to the United States to create more manufacturing jobs domestically. So I think that both candidates will put importance in securing interests of American people, the middle class and the American labor, for their trade policy. But we can see a little bit differences between the two candidates in terms of their trade policies. Harris first will use the tariffs strategically against China. So, but she will not use the tariffs against its allies like South Korea, Japan, other allied countries. But there will be a little difference. in terms of the Trump's trade policy. Considering the ally, the little difference between ally or non-allies. If an ally has got the little bit the visible the trade the surplus, then the Trump administration will attack the allied country and try to reduce their trade deficit against the ally. So South Korea needed to pay attention to how the Trump administration will take care of the trade deficits if it is if he is reelected. And Harris will maintain its de-risking approach to cope with the rise of China in terms of the advanced technologies. And Trump will also employ the selective decoupling approach to bring the manufacturing facilities back to the United States. So I don't see any difference in terms of the reshoring the approaches between the de-risking and the selective decoupling. So we need to pay attention to how the South Korean trade and the economy would be affected by the upcoming administration's the China policy in terms of the de-risking or decoupling. So taken together, all the candidates are similar in terms of how to pursue their trade policies. It seems that Harris government, if elected, would be more predictable and stable than Trump government. So personally, I think that Harris government could be a little bit better than Trump government for South Korean trade interests.
So both Harris and Trump will prioritize America's own national interests, but for South Korea, Harris would be slightly more beneficial for South Korea's interests because it would be a little bit more predictable.
Yes, in terms of the predictability and the stability.
Dr. ZOGBY, the two candidates were both asked about how they would handle the two ongoing wars, the Israel-Hamas war and the war in Ukraine. What are the key takeaways from the debate regarding Harris and Trump's positions on foreign policy and security issues?
Well, first of all, with Israel and Hamas, the two candidates could not have possibly been different. Donald Trump claimed to be 100% besides Israel and would pledge to support Israel in the strongest possible way. Ms. Harris went almost as far, but indicated that while she felt Israel had a right to defend itself, that the way it was defending itself was troublesome, and that she called actually for a ceasefire because of the thousands, tens of thousands of deaths among Gazans and now in the West Bank. She did not go so far as to say that she would cut weapons to Israel if Israel was shown to be using those weapons to kill innocent civilians. However, her call for a ceasefire and for a two-state solution went significantly farther than Donald Trump's call for just a one-state solution, essentially an Israeli dominance in the Middle East. I want to go back to the economy, though, and I think that this was the greatest missed opportunity for Vice President Harris. Right at the very beginning, the lead moderator opened with, what can you tell the American people about whether or not they are better off financially than they were 4 years ago? And she dropped that question and just moved on to talk about the future. Now, it's noble for a candidate to have a vision for the future and start to lay out specifics, but Mr. Trump is showing that as vice president, she owns the issue of the economy the last 4 years. She owns the huge inflation that not only denotes this administration, but also is the cause of a lot of its unpopularity. And I feel that either she missed an opportunity or she tried to finesse it by talking about the future, and it was the wrong response for her.
Now, Professor Min, Harris and Trump mentioned very little about North Korea, and yet we could still sense a stark difference in their approach toward North Korea policy. Whose presidency would be in the best interest of South Korea regarding North Korea issues?
Well, it's a little bit difficult to answer the question because the two candidates have a very different policies on the North Korea. As you know, Harris has maintained the bottom-up approach that she will meet Kim Jong-un only when there is a significant progress in North Korea's denuclearization. Meanwhile, Trump is likely to reactivate his top-down approach that he will first meet Kim Jong-un and they will talk about North Korea's denuclearization and U.S. corresponding measures. But regardless of the policy orientations and approaches that the two candidates use, it is very unlikely that North Korea is willing to make a progress in denuclearizing itself, regardless of how often Kim Jong-un would meet the President Trump. So, but anyway, we can see the differences between the two candidates in terms of dealing with North Korean issues. So if Harris gets elected, the deadlock situation between North Korea and U.S. will be maintained, and the military and security cooperation between South Korea and the United States will be strengthened. And as a result, the security situation on the Korean Peninsula will remain very grave. And meanwhile, if Trump gets reelected, a summit diplomacy between the two countries will be reactivated, and the geopolitical situations around the Korean Peninsula could also be changed. So I think that North Korean issues is one of the top policy issues that could significantly be affected by the outcome of the November election. So many experts in South Korea pay attention to the outcome of the presidential election in November, and they are preparing the different scenarios about how to deal with the North Korean issues in terms of the results of the presidential election.
Dr. ZOGBY, the debate touched upon a wide range of U.S. domestic issues from immigration and abortion to health care. What stood out to you the most? And were there arguments compelling enough to sway swing voters? You did mention that you don't think the debate will have an immense impact on swing voters, but...
Yeah, I mean, health care came up as an issue. And, what was significant is that the Affordable Care Act, so-called Obamacare, is extremely popular today. And Donald Trump is still committed to eliminating the Affordable Care Act. Very difficult to take something away from people. What also struck me about his position is that he has been talking about implementing a better health care plan for approximately 9 years since he started running for the presidency, and was still able to say last night, we're working on it. We have a plan that's conceptual, but we don't have any details. In essence, he really doesn't have anything anymore. So score big, I think, for Kamala Harris. And while health care on the broader list of top issues may not come in close to the top anymore, it is important to key groups of people, especially those who were not able to obtain good health insurance prior to the Affordable Care Act. I also think that that the issue of immigration, which is sure to play a big role, especially in border states. I think that while that issue should play to Donald Trump, I think he went overboard with some of his comments, and he was fact-checked by the moderators themselves, indicating that there was no evidence at all, that Haitian refugees most recently in a few small towns in Ohio, were reduced to eating pets. That was just truly bizarre, and anyone looking for, proof that Donald Trump is fit to be president again really have to scratch their heads.
And before we let you go, give us a breakdown of the latest poll results, and also can you share your thoughts on how the debate might affect the numbers going forward?
Of course, the major polls that have been taken were all taken before the debate. There was a flash poll taken afterward and showed that Harris won. But in terms of the horse race nationally in the battle states, we're just going to have to wait a couple of days. My sense is that Harris won, and she won on points. She didn't knock Donald Trump out. By the same token, she also didn't bully him. She showed that she has the skills and the demeanor to be president and can project a positive image, where she, I think, correctly charged that Donald Trump just continuously trashes the American people and anyone who has ever worked for him. I suspect that we will see Kamala Harris going back into the lead, picking up, I should say, the momentum that she had through much of October. And then, she had the support she had through much of the month of August. And, but we are at equilibrium here. I don't see where you're going to get a big Harris lead out of this. For that matter, there won't be any big Trump lead as well. We're at equilibrium.
Well, we have 55 days until Americans head to the polls, and we'll be watching very closely on how things develop from this point on, including poll results. Thank you so much, Dr. ZOGBY, for sharing your insights. We're so glad that you could be with us tonight. And many thanks to you as well, Professor Min. As always, we're very glad, we're very lucky to have you with us tonight.
Thank you.
And that brings us to the end of the show. Thank you for watching, and be sure to tune in same time tomorrow to join our conversation. Goodbye for now.